So we're in the third of a series about solving quadratics. We've done solving by graphing, solving by using the square root method. The last one's solving by factoring. Factoring is where you set an equation equal to 0, you factor, and then you set both of the factors or all of the factors equal to 0. So the key to this is that we need to understand that if you have two numbers that multiply up to 0, or if you have two numbers that multiply up to 5, you have lots of numbers that multiply up to 5, like 1 and 5, or -5 and -1, or 2 and 5 halves. There's all sorts of numbers that multiply up to 5. The problem is that doesn't help you find a solution. But if you know that two numbers multiply up to 0, you know either the first one is 0, or the second one is 0, or that they're both 0. So this is called the zero product rule. When you get things that multiply up to 0, it means that one or both is 0. And that's where the basis of being able to solve quadratics by factoring. It's really the purpose of factoring. So you can see my directions here. Set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And I'm going to also add 8 to both sides, because I want to do it all at once. 2x squared minus 17x minus 30 equals 0. Well, I know by factoring that this has got to be 2x and 1x, because there's no other choice. And I know that one of these is positive, one of them is negative. I can change which one it is later, but I'll just put it as plus and minus. So the other thing about factoring, if you didn't catch this earlier, is that if 2, 17, and 30 don't have a common factor, then the factors can't have a common factor. Therefore, this number over here cannot be even, because if it was even, then the middle number would be even. So now I'm looking for odd numbers that go into 30. What's an odd number that goes into 30? 5. We could try 5 and see what happens. Let's try 5 and 6, because they multiply up to 30. We have negative 12x and positive 5x. Well, unfortunately, if that positive 5 was a negative 5, I would be in great shape, but then it wouldn't be negative 30, it'd be positive 30. So even though 12 and 5 add up to 17, they don't subtract to 17, which I need to do in this case. So 5 doesn't work, but I'm not going to despair, because there are other odd numbers that go into 30. For instance, 15, but I'm not going to try 15 because it doesn't work. I could try 3. How about 3? So here I have a negative 20 and positive 3. Well, negative 20 plus 3 is negative 17, so we're golden on that one. So I've set it equal to 0. I've factored it into two things that multiply up to 0. Now I'm going to set the factors equal to 0. So 2x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 10 equals 0. Both little linear equations. This one, I'm going to subtract 3 and divide by 2, right? Subtracting 3, I get negative 3. Dividing by 2, I get negative 3 over 2. Over here, I'm going to add 10, so I'm going to get positive 10. So my two answers are negative 3 over 2 and 10. Notice I use the squiggly braces. All right, so there's the first one as an example. I set it equal to 0, factored, and set the factors equal to 0. Try this one, please. Pause the video and try this one. I hope you've tried it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides to get 2x squared. Subtracting 4x squared to get negative 19x. And adding 5 to both sides, I get 35 equals 0, because this side I've gotten everything off of that side now, right? Well, this one's just like the last one, except now I know what the signs are, because if they multiply up to a positive 35 and add up to a negative 19, I've got to have both negatives, right? Well, the easiest thing to multiply up to 35 would be 5 and 7, or 7 and 5, so that must be what it is. We can try one of those and see what happens. So how about 5 and 7, since they multiply up to 35? So the outer terms would be negative 14. The inner terms would be negative 5. Negative 14 and negative 5 makes negative 19. All right, so I've set it equals 0. I've got my factors. Now I'm going to set my factors equal to 0. 2x minus 5 equals 0. X minus 7 equals 0. After a while, you're not going to even have to do the work on this. You're just going to be able to write the answers, because you're going to know if you add 5 and divide by 2, you get 5 halves. If you need to see it, it would look like this. Add 5 to both sides, divide by 2, and you get x equals 5/2 or 2.5. I don't care how you write it. And over here, add 7 to both sides, x equals positive 7. So that's our third technique for solving quadratics by factoring.